In this interview, I meet up with Sue Decaro, who is a conscious parent, parent coach, an educator, and conscious living ambassador. She assists parents in creating more harmony, connectedness, boundaries, discipline, and confidence through her coaching expertise. Sue's support enables parents to discover what it is they want and guides them in how to get there. Let's welcome Sue. Thank you, Sue, for joining me today. This is so awesome to have you on this, our next summit. I wanted to start off by asking you, you're a parent coach, an educator, and a conscious living ambassador. How did this all start for you?
From unconsciousness, truth be told, from unconsciousness. I have two children, both girls, and they are my greatest awakeners. And so the simple answer is basically through my own parenting experiences from an unconscious behavior and conditioned behaviors and societal influences, raising them in certain ways that actually didn't really meet the child's need or help the child to thrive, nor support me as a human being in this world. So through that whole portal of pain and agony, here I am.
Mm-hmm. So that's how you ended up, becoming a coach to help other parents, right?
Right. I figured that if I was having as much trouble as I was having and I hired people, I wasn't embarrassed about getting help. I got help. I got every bit of help I could possibly get. I realized that there must be a lot of other parents that are also experiencing very similar things. So I went back to school for my master's level certification in parent coaching and have done a lot of other learning opportunities to help be the conscious ambassador and conscious coach that I am today.
Yeah. And I think when we become a parent, it's kind of, we just start the journey without a lot of guidance, isn't it? Like, and also you bring in your parenting from what your parents gave you.
Right.
As a
Right. My
backup.
parents gave me a lot of tools, but most of them were from unconscious behaviors. And again, I love to point out that it's not their fault.
Oh, yes.
It's just the way things were, because I think a lot of parents who think about conditioning and how they grew up, we want to blame. And it's really not about blame. It's really about just being aware of what was and what is, and they did the best they could with what they had. And now we can do it in a different way with what we know through different paths and different ideas.
Yeah, times have changed and we have more understanding, right? Than they had, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then can you explain to me what is conscious parenting so our viewers can understand?
So that's a great question. So I look at it twofold. The first is conscious parenting is about us really connecting with ourselves as parents. We may be new parents or maybe, halfway through the journey, whatever that halfway point looks like. And so it's an opportunity to look within, to see what those societal conditionings are, what the backpack we carry, I like to call the backpack, that we carry into this journey is stuffed with, the heavy rocks, the feathers, whatever that looks like, and unpacking that, dissecting that, so that we can be more aware of our behaviors in the moment and more consciously connected in a way with our children to help our children thrive. So part of it is about us as the parent dissecting what we bring to this parenting, quote unquote role. And the second part of this is looking at the child, of course. So each child that we bring into this world or that comes to us is here for us to see clearly and value as themselves and understand the uniqueness of that child. And so that's a stepping back process of being consciously aware of what this child is all about, what the child needs, how the child experiences love, learning,
Yes.
and all sorts of other things, how their behavior shows up, because we want as conscious parents to create those conditions that help each unique child to thrive in their own way.
And I think our own parents, right? They have given us those set of values. If you go back to that's the unconscious stuff we have, right? We have to work through that backpack.
The backpacks, yeah. So if I could give a tiny example, my mother and I tend to have a lot of control arguments. I wanted control, she wanted control when I was a kid. And back then, it was common to smack your child. And again,
Yes.
I don't hold any poor views or feelings. So when I had children, and I think this is true of a lot of parents,
Yeah.
I said, I'll never hit my kids, never.
Yeah.
Of course, I had the children, and there was 2 experiences where I hit them.
Yeah.
And it was the hardest thing to not do, honestly,
Yeah.
because the reactiveness inside of me that had been programmed to just react and do, quiet the child down by maybe a smack or slap or whatever. And it was painful. And at the same time, it was an eye opener that I had to work even harder. And I wasn't on this conscious path yet. So imagine I
Yeah.
had to work even harder to try to tackle that behavior that came just without thought.
Yes. Yes. It's a hard journey because we're kind of untraining ourselves at the same time we're parenting, wanting to parent the right way, right? It's
The right way, whatever that
yes.
way is. Yeah, the right
Yes.
way is the right way that serves the child
The
too. And
child.
it's about our own values, not the values that we've been fed on the platter, right? The
Yes.
platter that comes to us through our own conditioning, the platter from society. It should be done this way. It's really about tapping into, what do we want this journey to look like? What are the values that we want to bring to life for our personal family?
Yeah.
Not our parents' values, but our own values.
Yeah.
Very important part of it.
And it reminds me of, like for me, the hardest part is the society part. Some cultures are very, very driven by what are other people going to say, right? Like our parents were reacting on what other people are going to think about their parenting. So
Right.
it kind of comes with that package too, right? The backpack. Like
The
I need to,
backpack. Right. Right. That's part of the backpack, that if you're in Target and your child is having a meltdown, oh my gosh, what
what
will
is
people think?
thing?
And when reality kicks in, we realize they think just what we would think. Oh, that mom is having such a difficult time because the child is having a difficult time. They don't think we're terrible parents.
Yeah.
People don't walk around, and if they do judge, it's really not our business to worry about that, because our job is to show up for our child in that moment, not the
Mhm.
world around us, but our child.
Yeah, yeah, very, very important. With the 2020, we've been going through a lot of a lot of emotions, and families have been different, right? Our structure has changed. So, what have you noticed with the work you do with the families? Like, what are some of the things that are coming up?
Well, I think it's much more difficult for families to stay clear about their values now, and to
Mhm.
really tap into, what does that look like, and how can I create an environment for my child to thrive in school, and an environment for me to thrive in work, and boundaries and such, on the home life, because it's all one big life, right? It's all
Yes,
one.
one.
So I've worked with a lot of families in reference to that, to help them to really tap into, how can we create space for each of these things separately and together, and
Mm.
also to bring awakening to the uncertainty that exists now, but really understand that uncertainty has always been here. It just feels different now, but we've never known what tomorrow will look like, or next week, or next year. And we still don't. We're just in really different times worldwide, that it feels much heavier, for
Yeah.
sure. With
Yeah,
a
I
lot
think
more
we're
restrictions.
all in it together makes it more heavier than it's not my isolated
Right.
incident, right? Yes,
Exactly.
yes. So parents are, as you said, during this COVID and the lockdown, had to do different duties, like their roles have been all brought into home, right? And one of the things that I want to touch on is, because of the learning, is the summit is all about learning and how to parent at the same time. What is your recommendations for parents, having to do this role and become an educator at the same time within the family moving forward?
That's a great question, and many are asking me that now, because looking at
So,
the end of the year, it's going to be a tough thing with education too. So I think one of the things that I suggest is separating home and school time, and blocking out time that is school time. The structure needs to be in place for kids and for adults. We all need some structure.
yeah.
And so really structuring that home time, and trying to remove the anxiety that we all carry about how much our children are going to learn. What are they missing? What aren't they learning? I work with a lot of families right now that worry about their kids not keeping up in academics.
Yep.
But what child is keeping up in the way in which a teacher might teach in a classroom? In my opinion, and you would know better, I believe, but in my opinion, it's going to be hard for every child to keep up at the exact point that the teacher might expect if they were all in a classroom together.
Yes.
So, bringing compassion to wherever we are in the learning process and understanding that each child is going to be at a different place when they return to, the classroom environment, whenever that is. And we're going to have to meet the child where they are, emotionally, academically, anxiety oriented. I mean, mental health, we have to meet these kids where they are. So as parents, I think it's important to let go of that need for your child to be caught up in the right space, at the right place, because there is no right space now. There's just doing the very best you possibly can to create an academic arena for your child to learn and grow as best as you can.
Yeah, everyone's trying hard, right? Even if you're going to go in the blended way of learning, like, you get the work from the teacher and doing it at home, if that's what we're going to have in the fall coming up, everyone's in the same boat. So, obviously everybody's going to fall behind the same way. Right? And in the past, as a teacher, I know that even within the classroom before, kids do fall behind. There are kids who are always falling behind too, right? So I think parents just, because it's in front of them, before it was maybe happening at school, now they
Right.
have more awareness too, right? Because it's happening right in front of them and they're dealing with it. So it's it is some, for parents, it's scary, because education is something that we want to give the best to our children, right? And then here we are noticing that they're falling behind. Well, how am I going to catch them up next year to their peers, right? So it is
Absolutely.
a big responsibility. So what would you advise? Like, as you said, you would keep it separate, like have schedule for your family,
Mm-hmm.
and also to get rid of this fear, though. Like, how can you help them with the fear of if they do miss, what happens? What do you say to that?
We just talk about it. It's not the worst thing in the world. Right now, the most important thing is stay connected as families, move through this together as a family unit, create values around what this looks like for your family. Some families are what I call COVID conservative, right? We're conservative about the virus and how we move forward.
Yeah.
So, it's really developing those family values and working to empower your children to be part of the conversation, not just receiving the solution. So in moving forward with education too, I think it's important that we empower our children to talk about, when do you feel would be the best time to put your 4 hours in, depending on their age, or your 6 hours or whatever, or when would you like to do math and when would you like to do English? Let's look at creating a schedule together and then see how it works. But talking to our children and asking them these questions helps them to have input. And when they have input, they tend to have more buy-in. If we stand up and say, okay, kids, you're going to do your work from 10 to 4 every day, Monday through Friday, in this corner of the world, they really feel unempowered. They feel like they have no choices. You're dictating, and the buy-in is not as great.
Yeah.
And if they've created this with you, the buy-in is much better.
Yeah. For sure. And what would you say the parents, one of the things I'm reading a lot now, again and again, is how stressed out the kids are. I mean, they have feelings, right? They know there's uncertainty. This world has changed for them. They're not going back to school in September, maybe, right? We don't know,
Right.
or August. So what can you say about, as a conscious parent, how can they help them?
I think one of the main things is, we look at ourselves as adults and think, oh, this is so stressful, right? And most days we may feel the pain and agony of not being able to go here, go there, have to wear a mask, et cetera, or just stay at home and we can't socialize.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to step back again and say, what is this like for my children?
Mm-hmm.
And ask the children questions about how they are feeling. We don't have to fix it, solve it. We can't fix it or solve it. So, this is another place where we're just listening and hearing our children's viewpoints and being able to value how they're feeling and acknowledge the feelings that they have wholeheartedly. You know, perhaps they're upset they can't see their very best friend, and that's causing them a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort. We can acknowledge how difficult that is. I get it. You could say to your kids, I get it. I understand. That must be really hard. Is there anything that we can do differently that we're not already doing to create the space safely for you to have connection with, little Johnny or whoever, or as they get older, same thing. Acknowledging our children's emotions and feelings during this difficult time or any time is important. It's not just us, the adults in their life, that are anxious about it. Our kids are showing up with the same anxiety, and they may be feeding off of us in this anxiety. I have a client right now whose son is incredibly anxious. And as it turns out, the mother is scared to death of COVID, scared to death. And I said, we've got to work on this first because he's feeding off of you, so we have to look at how we're showing up. And then we also have to tap into how we can help our children to tap into their own emotions, share them, feel heard and valued and respected.
Mm-hmm. And, like you talked about unconscious parenting, right? During this time, those will surface more than before, because under stress, don't they? We all get anxiety brings out that behavior, right?
Yeah, right.
So when educating their kids at home, one of the problem that's going to come out is this role: you're not my teacher, you're my mom, or you're my dad. Like, you can't tell me what to do. This has been happening with a lot of families. Have you heard of that in your practice? Like, anybody?
No, I haven't necessarily had that come up, but I think it could come up, any day now. And I think one of the things that's really important is to talk with your children about how your role has changed. So it's really sharing that, during the hours of 10 to 2, I will be taking more of a teacher role, and then step into the teacher role if that's what you're going to take on, or the homeschooling role, or the school at home role, whatever you want to call it. It's something completely different, right? So we need to acknowledge that this is a different role for and with our children, so that they understand that we're not the mom who's, making lunch right now, or doing the laundry, or whatever. We're the mom who's sitting next to them, or the dad who's sitting next to them, helping them through their assignments, guiding them and supporting them as they go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, one of the things I analyzed in the last summit was where people wanting to do other alternative education models, right? Like unschooling and, homeschooling, where they take the responsibility completely to themselves, right? So, us as a conscious parent, or unconscious parents, what happens is we all have our own backpack with, how education should look like, right?
Right.
How can we advise those parents who are going in that journey and starting that journey and have this backpack? Of course, we're going to have it. We can't say we're just going to drop it, right? It's going to come along with us. It takes it's a process, right? As you said.
Yeah, it's a process to drop the backpack on the side of the highway. It's a long journey, hiking. But, we do revert back to old habits. It's just the nature of human beings. And I think one of the most important things that we can do is have compassion for ourselves, in that may come up. But if you're a parent listening and you decide to homeschool, the real homeschooling sense of homeschooling, and many parents I talk to are actually shifting in that direction. Education should be fun, right? And making it fun for our kids and exciting for our kids without the stress of outcome. And I think that's one of the things that this slowdown period, so to speak, has offered us, is the opportunity to work with our children from a learning capacity and create fun around learning and excitement and adventure, and whatever we can create that has an interest for them. Create the interest for them. They like something that you can create around English or history or whatever other studies, and bring it in. It's going to be far more interesting to them. And look at the process of learning. The process of learning is different from the outcome. The outcome is the rote memory, regurgitate, we're focused on that. We just want our kids to get A's and B's or just A's. And they're not really focused on the learning process. And I think we need to go back now to the learning process and how important that process is for our children. Because
Yes.
the outcome will come, right? The outcome will come. They will thrive if learning is fun and connected for them.
Yeah, yeah. In math, I always say, like, if I work on everything else, the mark is just a byproduct
I love it. Yeah.
of the process, right? It's always the
Yeah.
byproduct. If you just focus on marks, you're actually creating a sense of they can't enjoy it because they're just chasing. It's like chasing after just money without
Right.
enjoying the process of working for that money, right? It's hard road if we choose that for our kids.
It is. And I think we lose out on the internal motivation and it becomes an external motivation. You know, the mark may mean money, right? You get an A, maybe somebody gives you money.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't my way, but a lot of people do utilize those tools. And I think if you want to develop the intrinsic motivation in the children, it's an opportunity to connect them with the material in a way that speaks to them. So make learning fun is the bottom line.
Yeah.
And that takes energy from our parents. It takes a lot of energy. It's not easy. I mean, let me just say that. It is not easy.
No, it's a creativity in a world of uncertainty. The last spot you go is creativity. Like, okay,
Right.
now let me get all creative, right?
Right, right,
It's
right.
hard. And if you have 4 kids with 4 different learning styles, your creativity is going to run out pretty fast, right? And that's what I wanted to educate the parents on in the summit is that, there is going to happen those days you're going to be running out of, you're going to be empty.
Right.
How do you fulfill, like, what can you offer in that for parents?
I'm glad you asked because we don't ever want to run on empty. And not that creativity is just sitting in the wings, waiting for us to tap into it. But it's very important as a parent or anybody, any human being, that we take care of ourselves first, that we fill our tank, that we fuel ourselves in a way that serves us. So, if you're a runner and that's something that really gives you energy, try to carve out the time and space for you to do that every day or as much as you can so that you're refilling your tank, refueling. We all need this. And not only are you doing yourself a huge or giving yourself a huge gift, but you're also showing and modeling to your children how important it is for us to take care of ourselves and do things that provide that energy and that self-care and that compassion and love that we need to have for ourselves first.
Yeah, very, very important. And how did you manage, like, you said you were unconscious parenting first, right? And when you started your journey as a parent, how did you manage to keep yourself filled during those times? Because one of the things we always say is, okay, I have a plan. Like I sometimes promise myself, one of my non-negotiable is going for a walk at the beach, right? But then there are days I'll just give that up very quickly and then realize by 1 o'clock, I'm feeling crap because I didn't go for my walk.
Right.
But I needed to, at 1 o'clock hits, I realized, not at 6 a.m. when I should have done it, right? So how did you keep yourself not falling in that trap? Because parents fall in that trap very quickly because of the demand.
Yeah, exactly. And again, when my kids were little, I was unconscious. So self-care was at the bottom of my list, not the top of my list. And it was, when they were in their teens, when I kind of learned to step into the world of consciousness and conscious awareness. And that's when I learned how important self-care was in my life and to put me first. And it's not selfish, it's selfless. Because if I didn't put me first, then I'd never be on the list, or I'd be so far to the bottom of the list, I'd never get to myself. So I think one of the best ways that we can do this is by creating a schedule for ourselves and sticking with that schedule. Now, yes, like you said, there are days where we don't, do something that's part of our self-care practice. So there's a few things I advise. One is do not beat up on yourself. Do not should yourself. That word is a bad word. So kindness to yourself and compassion to yourself is key. Otherwise, we're just making it worse, right? We didn't take care of ourselves and now we feel guilty and the pain and agony that we're inflicting on ourselves because we didn't do this. So that's not going to help you in any way, shape, or form. But recognize that it's 1 o'clock. I'm going to use your example. It's 1 o'clock and you feel empty. And acknowledge why you feel empty. I did not run or walk at 6 a.m. and that's my time. Wow, I can see the difference that makes. So it comes from an awareness and you treat it like an awareness. You don't treat it like a detriment or, something that you didn't do right. There's not right or wrong. It's all about learning and growing.
Yeah.
So then you can look at your schedule and see how the rest of the day you might be able to fit something in, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, that will provide you self-care for what you missed. And then again, learn to not repeat that cycle if you can. And there may be times when you do. And again, it's just awareness and compassion. I find that a shower, a mindful shower for me, if I don't get a chance to do anything else, can be very energy producing. And, you know, it's what, 5 minutes? So I take 5 minutes doing something I have to do anyway to stay clean. And so I bring a mindfulness practice to that by acknowledging, you know, the water on my body, the heat, you know, it's those five senses, kicking in those senses and being aware of where you are in that moment and what is happening, not thinking about what's for dinner or what the lesson plan is or where your kids are, who's doing what, but focusing on you in the shower and how beautiful a gift that time is for you.
Yeah, very important. And what would you say, like, was it like, I know you said it was a period of time where you went from unconscious parenting to conscious parenting. Was there a moment when you said, okay, this is the time to drop all of this, or was it a process of dropping little at a time? Like, did you take off the weight a little bit at a time, or one day you just came out free? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would love to say that, boom, you know, I just dropped the backpack, but you know, life doesn't offer us that opportunity, in my opinion. It's ingrained in us to have this backpack. It's not something so simple as a jacket we can just toss aside. So for me, it was an awareness building practice and process of where did that come from? Where did that big reaction come from? Why did I yell? And, you know, kind of tap into where it came from. So children trigger us. They trigger us in many different ways, but they're not triggering us because they know our buttons, as many parents like to say. They're triggering us because we're wearing the buttons. Our triggers are out there for our children to push, right? And so, you know, it's like those big red buttons from Staples, I like to say, you know, they have on all their commercials. So if you tap into what your buttons are, and this is one of the educational opportunities that I provide to parents in this world is, you know, courses about this. But if you tap into what your buttons are as your children are pushing them, or afterward, kind of reflecting at the end of the day, I was really reactive at this point in time. What was this about? What did that say about me? It's not about your children, because we can come to that same button in a calm approach and get further than we can by reactivity. So it's really the development of reflection, awareness, pausing, and conscious approaches to things as you move forward to tap into all the stuff that's in the backpack, which are the triggers, the conditioning, the reactivity, the things that we just aren't aware of if we don't stop and look.
Yes.
So I got out the microscope, I guess you could say, and tapped into what my conditioning was, what my societal, you know, learning had been, and what I was carrying in the backpack to start unpacking it. I still have unconscious moments, but they don't last as long. And sometimes I catch myself in it as I start to step into it. And I think because it's internalized for me with the practice I've done for so long, it's easier to acknowledge, wow, I'm down that rabbit hole, and own it. Own it, apologize for it, and immediately, you know, rectify it or repair whatever has transpired.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's the awareness is number one to anything, right?
Number one, as soon as you start to be more aware, then you can change. It doesn't mean you're going to change it midstream or right after, but you can start to see the patterns that show up in your life. So you're absolutely right. The first step is to be aware.
Yes, yes. And in education, it's the same thing. Like if a student is struggling, right? First step is them becoming aware of why I'm struggling, what's happening there. And then that momentum of that is what gets them going. And sometimes that's why, you know, I said right parenting or the right environment. And then the second fold to your unconscious parenting is that, isn't it? Connecting to your
Yes,
child. After you become
absolutely.
aware of yourself, the second part is how am I going to respond to my child? And every child's different. And that's something that I had to learn too. Like, you know, we tend to generalize our children sometimes if we have more than one, but they're not. They have their uniqueness, right? We have to stay with it as we would parent.
Absolutely. And see that uniqueness and honor it in our children, celebrate it, right? Who wants kids that are exactly the same? And they're not mini me's either. My children aren't me. They may have traits that appear to be a little more like me, but they're their own people. And I think when we recognize that, we see the beautiful gifts and can acknowledge the beautiful gifts they bring to this world in such a powerful way and a powerful process.
Yeah, yeah, very important. So I know that you're on a mission to bring more laughter, love, and enjoyment to families in their life, right? In their home life. Um, how is it, why is this important to you? Like, how did you start on this mission? And why is it important?
Yeah, I think circling back, I had a lot of pain and stress, when my kids were little, and I did not have the joy. And so, I think that, as I said earlier, really wanting to make a difference in the world for parents who probably are struggling like I was or differently, to bring more of this joy that parenting can provide, having a family, being part of a family, walking side by side and guiding and raising our children can be just a beautiful gift. And we lose sight of that sometimes because we get lost in what I like to call as the muck. And that's where we're living. So, when my kids were little, I was in the muck. And there's no joy in the muck. It's just dirty and stressful and overwhelming. So yes, I do want to worldwide change this world for children, the next generation, so that they don't feel as if they're, when they're adults, they're 30, 40, 50, that they've not been seen, heard, or valued. So now's the time we need to see them clearly, hear them, and value them, as human beings on this earth, unique, in and of themselves.
And you saw, you're a living proof to that, right? When you did become conscious, your relationship with your kids and everything in your life is much better
Much
and
better.
enjoyable.
Yes, it definitely changed the relationships I have with my children, and still does. It's an ongoing process. We don't arrive at this conscious level and we stop. We continue to stay on the journey of conscious awareness and the conscious continuum to continue to deepen our knowledge of ourselves, because I think that's ongoing, and also deepen our knowledge of our children. And I think the other piece of this is our children are here to help us grow, just as we're here to help them grow. So the more we engage in conversation, empowerment, questioning, curiosity, which is one of my favorite words in parenting, we show up to be curious, then we can learn from our children. And my kids have told me things, that have bothered them that I do or have done, and or we talk about childhood, and it pains me, but not in a way that I'm not willing to own it and move forward and rectify it and repair or whatever I need to do. Because none of us want to hurt our children, and when children say, I don't know why you ever, apparently I use the word disappointed. And I've been reminded of that recently. When my kids were small, I used that word, and how powerful that word is. And I know now, on this journey of consciousness and conscious ambassador in the world, that words carry weight. Yes. So our children are here to remind us of all the things that we can learn through them and with them, just as we're teaching them. It's a two-way street if we keep that open.
Yeah, because if I don't want to disappoint my parent, then I'm carrying this weight of I need to act a certain way,
Right.
or I have to be a certain way, otherwise I'm going to disappoint them. And
Right.
now I'm living to your expectation or my parents' expectations, right? And then I can't be myself.
There's the conditioning, yeah. And then there becomes a mask we put on to be what it is we need to be in order to please the other, and we lose the essence of ourselves.
Yeah. What would you say, like, this is something that's just coming up to me right now, is that what about if I wasn't a conscious parent all this time and I have a teenager? Now I all of a sudden start changing. They're gonna see a shift. They're like, what's happening here? You're usually not acting like that. You're usually yelling at me. Now you're like different. How do you bring that? Like, earlier start is better, of course, but what if I didn't and I'm here with the 16-year-old?
Whenever you bring change to your parenting, it doesn't matter when. It's a beautiful thing. So if your child is 16 or your child is 20, it doesn't matter. Change is a beautiful gift, and bringing conscious awareness to your life and the life with your children is going to impact all of you in a positive way. If
Mm.
your child is looking at you like you have two heads, address it. Don't let it just be the silent elephant in the room that nobody talks about. I had a client years ago that brought their kids together and said, Sue is our coach and she's going to teach us better ways to work with you and communicate with you and to connect with you. And so the kids could look at this as a positive thing, that the parents were interested in learning. And so if you're learning new ways to behave, tell your kids, you're actually looking at your parenting style and you want to kind of shift a little bit to create deeper connections with yourself and also with them. So, if they notice you trying new things on, it's because you're working to create those deeper relationships.
Yeah. So it's nothing to hide, because that's one of the things I hear.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't hide. I wouldn't hide behind your learning. Again, it's another modeling opportunity. We never stopped learning. So we're a parent. We don't have all the answers. We weren't thrown into this job with a book about little Susie and little Tommy. We were thrown into this, this beautiful relationship of walking side by side with a child, but not knowing that child's essence until it starts to show up, and then it continues to grow and thrive and develop. And so if there was a handbook for each child, it would be different, but there isn't. And so I think part of this journey is saying to your children, I'm learning too, I'm growing too, we're growing together. Isn't it nice? You can teach me, I can teach you, and I also can read about other ways or hire someone to learn other ways to deepen my connection with myself, deepen my understanding of you, and be a better parent. I think when we say that to our children, it has a lot of power. I think the power of them seeing that we always want to do better and we know that we can.
Yeah, it is beautiful, because they're going to see how important you're placing the relationship, right? The importance you're placing on this relationship,
Right.
even though it might have not worked for the past 2-3 years, because, as they turn teenagers, you might have had a lot of arguments, but now here you are trying to fix it.
Right.
That shows
Exactly.
a big step. They will understand you more. I think you can turn it around. There's never,
Absolutely.
it's not too late.
Never too late. No, my kids were in their teens, so it's never too late to shift the dynamics, to change the relationship, to bring new skills and tools. Never too late, because we're human beings, imperfectly perfect, I like to say. And so the journey of learning should be a continuous journey, just like the continuum we're on for consciousness. It's constant awareness, constant learning, day-to-day reflection. And that's how we grow. When we stop growing in our learning, what else is there? I like to learn every day something new. I think it's a beautiful gift to be able to learn and grow every single day of our lives.
Yes. As a parent coach and a conscious parent and an educator, what is your advice for parents, who may have, this has been coming up for me a lot with parents that I work with, teenagers, and, moving forward, they have a lot of stress, as, some of them are in grade 12 and they don't even know what the future holds, right? What my university, like, there's lots happening, right? So what's your advice for parents and their teens?
So, having just been through that myself with uncertainty and my daughter graduating from college this past May and being, ripped out of her college experience in March and missing all of that, I think acknowledging that there's a grieving period and that our kids are sad, disappointed, unhappy. They're missing out on this, that, or the other, and that's upsetting to them in their life. In the scheme of things, we might think, well, that's not really a big deal. We're still alive and we're healthy, but they may not see it that way. And they're children or young adults. So I think really, again, acknowledging their emotions as important to them and being there with them and for them. You can't fix it. We can't fix the fact that, for example, with my daughter, that she lost her graduation.
Yeah.
The whole senior year had turned upside down, and there was a lot of grieving. There was a lot of sadness, a lot of loss, a lot of days where she was, uncomfortable, moody, and reactive.
Yeah.
And we had to acknowledge this is where it was coming from, what was underlying, and be supportive in a way that helped her through. So, be compassionate with yourself, but also bring a lot of compassion and empathy and understanding to what it must be like for your children. And if you can remember being back in those times, the important things that you did with your friends, or how important your senior year was, or if you're looking at colleges, the college tour was important, and the moving into the dorm, and the orientation, whatever it is, the joining the soccer team, it doesn't matter what it is, it's important to them. And because it's important to them, it needs to be important to us to acknowledge and talk about, and continue to talk about until they've moved through it in a way that they're able to feel somewhat comfortable.
Yeah, it's very important. You can't just say to them, well, we're healthy and we're well, you should be thankful. Yes, that's true. But at the same time, as you say, you have to allow them to grieve. And it
You
is
do.
valid. All of those, concerns are valid, right? Because we look forward
Absolutely.
to this. That's our life, right? That's their life. That's what they look forward to. And now it's not here anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we can't just brush that under the carpet, because it'll come out in other ways and behavior and other things if we don't talk about what this must be like for them. That's the important key, is what is this like for you? What are you sad about? What have you lost? Let's talk about it.
hmm And what about for parents with younger children who are starting the journey, right? And what would you advise them?
Really tough. I have a grandchild who's 5, so was just about to start kindergarten,
Wow.
and I don't know what that looks like right now, but I think, really weigh out your values and what is important to you, because a lot of what I'm hearing right now, especially parents of younger children, is they don't know what to do.
hmm
Should I send if the school's open, should I send my child back, or shouldn't I? Or should I send my child, period, to, start school?
Yeah.
And once you tap into what you want, what your pros and cons look like, and it's great if you can do it with a professional, because it does bring a different level of organization to your thoughts and
hmm
curiosity, and weighing the pros and cons in a different way. But when you weigh the pros and cons, you're looking at what's right for you.
hmm
If the virus is so scary that you don't want your child to leave the house, then you need to create an environment that works for you and your child, but not from fear. Then you need to move into the comfort of creating what serves you.
Yeah.
Okay, fear would be letting my child step into the classroom. Non-fear would be creating a beautiful environment at home. Then do what serves you. And it comes back to, don't look outside of you about the judgment. Because I see parents posting things on social media about this, and other parents saying, oh yeah, of course we'll send our kids back. It's not about what everybody's doing. It's about what you feel confident and comfortable doing with your child in the particular school district and town and community and state that you live in today
Yeah.
or tomorrow. And you could change your mind, and that's okay too. So really honor your internal feelings and values and what's important to you as as parents or a parent, and go from there to set up the environment for your child. And talk with your child if they're old enough to understand, because when we make the decision for our child, again, there's going to be a lot of animosity if the child has an awareness and understanding of what they're losing. So talk with your child about why this is important for you and why you feel strongly, not from fear, but from facts.
And let them know this is something we're just going to try, right? Like, as I said in the last summit, I kept telling parents to be relaxed about whatever's going to happen, because we don't really know, right? The best thing to tell them is that we don't really know, but we'll just
So,
try it.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
we don't know. And these are the options that we have, right? And we need to choose from one of those options for today. All we know is this moment. We
yeah.
don't know anything past that. I mean, most school districts don't even know if they're opening. So this isn't even a question that parents can actually make a decision on today.
Yes. And one of the things that you do is help parents with these kind of decisions, and it's
Absolutely.
total, keeping them worried and up at night, because this is a big deal, right?
It's a big deal. And sometimes talking with someone who can help you, you get off that ledge. I mean, we're a lot of us are on ledges or cliffs, just wondering what will happen. We
Yes.
look at that and we deconstruct that so that we can actually look at how to move forward in a way that serves you, makes you feel more comfortable and confident, and brings compassion and love to your own heart. so that you can bring it to your child, because
Yeah.
that's key.
Yes, very important. And what you do is that, as you said earlier, the child will feed off your fear. So with what you do in your coaching is to take that, give the confident parent, right? Parents the confidence so that the child doesn't feed off, because that's the last thing any parent want to do.
Right, right. And if you see anxiety in your child, or you see fear in your child about the virus, look in the mirror. And I mean this in the most loving way. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I displaying to my child? Because oftentimes they're mirroring what they feel in our energy. And I've had parents say, but I hide my fears. There's no such thing. Kids are like energy absorbers. They can walk into a room where you've had a disagreement, an argument, or some tense discussion, and you could stop cold turkey and talk about, ham for dinner, and they're going to feel the tension in the room and pick up on that. And then they'll start to worry, what was that about? And, what did I miss? So kids know, they sense these things. So we can't hide from it, but it's important to deconstruct it and bring more attention and awareness to it in a different way, so that we can feel like when we show up for our children, we're showing up with the energy and the attitude that we want to show up with to help our children move forward too.
Thank you, Sue, for sharing all that. And I know you do such a great job with parents like, who have these worries. And, is a lot of it in your coaching, is it group or is it individual parents? Like, can they get help?
I do both. I do one-on-one, I do group coaching, I have online courses. I really try to meet parents where they are. And, when parents come to me with specific things, I try to make it work for that particular parent. So if they want to do a group setting, then we create groups.
And you work with the age group is between young, doesn't matter what.
Any age. I mean, I have actually worked with parents of adult children too.
Yeah. And parenting, when it comes to it, it doesn't matter the age. I know we separate them, but it's pretty much the conscious parenting style.
Right. When we're raising a child, whether they come through us or to us, we've just become a parent, and we're always a parent.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. We really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.